Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. Really the pre-show for the live stream, but you're here nonetheless. If you're watching this in a replay, you can either hang out with me or fast forward about 10 minutes and we will get started. In the meantime, I will update the website with the things that need the updating. I will tell the chat room that we are live /live. And put that there, A+ study group. All right, then we need to change the website so that the banner at the top shows the proper link to the live page, which is professormesser.com/live. My free A+ study group is right now. Click here to join us. Whoops. To join us. Join us. There we go. /live. And reset the cookie in case you hit it. That will unhide it and save the changes so that it will propagate. And that's done. And I think we're in pretty good shape. Let's look at cameras, shall we? Camera 1. Am I a little low? Just not sitting up straight. Camera 2. Maybe a little low. Let's see if we can bump things up a bit. That seemed a little better. It did. See what happens? Camera 3. Camera 4 should show right now the live stream info, which is good. Good is good. Here's how we're doing with our question of the day. All right, that works. Oh, graphic. Graphic? Yes, graphic. Should have had a warning there. This will be graphic. See? Wasn't kidding. The question, what's the top apple producing state in the U.S.? It's apple lowercase, so I must mean the fruit. Not many Apple products produced in the U.S. these days. Not a lot. Not a lot of products from anybody produced in the U.S. these days, relatively speaking. Oh, it's the 5th of July. Are people even going to attend? The blasts will go out in a few minutes. Oh, look, there are people on the stream. Who said you weren't coming? Thank you for joining us on this day after a fantastic July 4th holiday. What is the time? Oh, we've got another 2 minutes before the tweet, the email, all of that happens. Who knows what the right answer is? But as we go through the study group, you should know not to put anything in the chat room that might be a hint or a question or anything else. Don't put the answers in the chat room. Put the answers on Socrative or professormesser.com/QA. And I think I put all of the links now on the live page. So if you go to professormesser.com/live, the phone number is there. The link to answer the questions is there. I have too many lines on this page. Need to update that. Is it there? Yeah, the real-time Q&A link is there. So you can bring that up. That works. Dog show. I think we're in good shape. I think we've got, oh, you know what I haven't tested is Keynote. Keynote. Will it play? Will Keynote blend? Let's find out. And big green button. It plays. That's great. That's fabulous. We've got Socrative running, so that's working. We've got video recording, audio and video recording here. You can see my Cylons are running down here. That's my video recorder from Blackmagic. Audio seems to be operating optimally after my week off. Was it 1 week or 2 weeks? I guess it was 1 week, wasn't it? It's hard to tell. With the holiday in between, it throws everything off because I just don't do work and everything just, I lose track of time. I don't know what day it is. I thought it was Monday. No, it's Wednesday. You have a live stream. Get in there. Hurry, hurry, hurry. It's that kind of thing going on with me. So I'm figuring it out. Very nice. Very, very nice. What do we got going on there? Oh, look. It's time for a study group, according to that. Let's see if the tweets went out. Check the tweets. Yes, there it is. Tweets are out, which means also the email blast is going. So we got that going for us. What else is going on? How are you guys doing? We will be looking at the chat room in professormesser.com/live. The live event chat is there. I have it up on my screen. This is a live event chat. It's right here in front of me. So I've got a presentation I'll be talking to here. I've got a chat I'm watching here. I've got Q&A that's happening in front of me. I've got the slides that are being presented here. And somehow all of this works together. I don't know either, but there we are. It's quite a bit of juggling. It's just constant juggling to keep things going. There were fireworks Tallahassee. I did not attend the local fireworks. I instead stayed at home and turned on the Walt Disney World live stream fireworks last night. That's what I did. That's what we did. We sat in our air-conditioned living room and watched the live stream. No bugs bit me. I wasn't sweating. This is one of the challenges in Florida when July 4th comes around. It's hot outside. So no, I did not go to the fireworks that were here. But it's kind of nice. They got a nice setup. They got people playing music and events and things and things to eat, places to go, things to see. There's always something. Yeah, Walt Disney World will occasionally stream fireworks on all kinds of interesting occasions. You should keep track of what they're doing on the Walt Disney World blog. So that's what you should look for. Maybe there's a good Walt Disney World blog. The URL is, it's big. It's the Disney Parks blog, which is at disneyparks.disney.go.com/blog. Oh, painful. Go to the Google machine, type in Walt Disney World blog. Or I guess you could type in Disney Parks blog, isn't it? Because it's really the blog for all of the parks. Disney World, Disneyland, Disneyland Paris, everywhere around the world. So Disney Parks blog is the official blog. Maybe they have a replay there. I don't know. It's usually it's a one thing and it's gone. You're there and it's not there anymore. So you kind of have to hunt around. But they streamed on YouTube. It was delightful. It was fantastic. Okay, what are we doing? 2 minutes. 2 minutes to go. 2 minutes to go. 2 minutes to go. It's quite a day. Got a lot going on. I got a lot going on. I don't know about you. I have things to do. I got stuff to do. This is just one of those stuffs to do right now. And then we're doing more stuff after this. Not a live stream after this, but just I have more things to do. There's always something going on. I've always got myself in the middle of something. So one never knows. What else we got looking at here? Is everything working? I think it is. I think we got everything ready. I think I've got the things I need up on my screen. Do I have the... I don't have the 902 course notes up. I thought I was missing something. Let's bring the 902 course notes up. There we go. And we'll put them on that side of the screen. And these on this side of the screen. See how that works? Boom. And Bob is indeed your uncle. Bob is not my uncle. Steve is my uncle. I think we're ready. I think we're just about going. What sound system am I running? Oh, it's a long, convoluted mess of things, my friend. It is, the microphone is a Heil PR40. That's the Heil PR40 right there. It's an awesome mic. Had this mic for a long time. It's a really great mic. Everything runs through the Axia Radius IP-based audio system to my left, which is really just Linux. embedded in this thing. Not just Linux. I mean, it does a lot more than that, but that Radius console is nice. And then everything gets piped through to, you know what I didn't bring up? Skype. You know what I didn't bring up? Everything is recorded. Are you kidding me? Is it recorded for future viewing? Everything is recorded for future viewing here. There's really no question about that. Let's get the Skype going. We're going to need that for later. We'll get the call-in thing going for the call-in after show. In fact, it's immediately available. After I stop the stream, it is updated immediately online. So you can go to YouTube 5 minutes after we're done and start watching the replay. So it's really a beautiful thing. And with that, it's time to get going. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the July 2017 Professor Messer A+ Study Group. It's the day after the 4th of July. We're here on the 5th of July, recovering from our time. A lot of people took a lot of time off here in the United States. It's a big holiday. So it's one of those nice things to be able to sit down, relax. We're going to do some Q&A with the A+ content during this first hour. I'll tell you in a moment how you can participate online for free. There's no cost to do any of these things. You can simply connect to our Socrative and join along with everyone else as we answer these questions. In the second hour, I'm going to open up the phone lines. You're welcome to call in and you ask a question about A+. You can ask a question about Network Plus or Security Plus or anything in IT. You can ask questions about the 4th of July. You can ask questions about what I'm playing on Xbox One. You can ask questions about anything. It's just open phone lines, and we'll see how this goes. Most of the time it goes okay. Sometimes not so much, but we'll find out after we go through this. Thanks for joining us here. If you are attending this live, there is a live chat available on professormesser.com/live. It's the live event chat, and I'll be able to see what's going on, see people talking here and asking, do you have to buy a course to participate in the group questions? No, you just simply have to be here at professormesser.com/live. One of the things that is happening with ProfessorMesser.com is that we have this study group that happens once a month. You can go back and look at all the replays of all of the study groups that we do. We do an A+, a Network Plus, a Security Plus. We've also got all of our videos. Every video, every course I do, every minute of every course I do is available to watch on YouTube for free. I know, it's crazy. You can find out more about that at ProfessorMesser.com/YouTube or go to the ProfessorMesser.com site where everything is indexed for you. Also, a daily pop quiz for A+ is available on Twitter. I can send you an email. There's lots of ways to get it. You can find out about that on ProfessorMesser.com/Twitter. And don't forget about my vouchers. If you are someone who is ready to take your exam, you can get a discount off the CompTIA exams by going to ProfessorMesser.com/vouchers. If you already have an A+, a Network Plus, a Security Plus certification, or one of many others, and you're accumulating continuing education units, this is a 1-hour webinar unit. So that's kind of nice, but you have to listen. Sometime during this hour, I'm going to give you instructions and a special code word that you will use to be able to get that continuing education unit. That continuing education unit is one that is only available if you've already passed the exam. Doesn't help you if you're studying right now, but that's something that might help you. Speaking of studying, there is the 22901 and 22902 are the current versions of the A+ exams as we sit here on July the 5th of 2017. And they were released around December 15th of 2015. Usually these exams are good for 3 years, so we don't expect there to even be any update on these until well into 2018. So you have plenty of time. These are relatively new exams from that perspective. So it's one of those nice things. If you've already have your A+ certification, you're trying to renew, there's lots of ways to renew this. In fact, they've introduced some new renewal features on the CompTIA website. Make sure you look. You can simply buy their CertMaster and renew your A+ certification. That's something new that they've done. So it's just another way that they're making it easy for you. Don't forget that the 901 and 902 exams, this is 2 exams that you have to take to pass your A+. The 901 has hardware, networking, mobile devices, hardware, network troubleshooting, and the 902 focuses more on operating systems, Windows, Linux, Mac OS. There's security, software troubleshooting, and some operational questions in there as well. So it's one of these things where you have to take both and you have to pass both. You have to pay for them individually as well. There's the hook on that. So we're going to go through today questions from both of these exams. So we're going to cover the bases as we step through these questions today. The exam itself has a lot of questions on it. I like to tell you to watch a video, get a good book, and then do some Q&A. What I've done is taken all of my Q&A and I've put them into a couple of books, one for 229.01 and 229.02. More questions in this Q&A book than any other book you will find anywhere. My 229.01 book and 902 book combined have over 1,300 questions on them. There's plenty to look at here. If you want to know more about that, go to professormesser.com/PQC. But what if you want some free questions? I've taken all the questions that we've done on our online study groups, and I put them online for you to take electronically. So you can go to professormesser.com/popquiz for some free questions. There's A+, and Network Plus, and Security Plus there. A lot of things to look at, and hundreds of questions are there for the A+ exam. Just another thing that might help you. If you are someone who likes to take these study groups around after the fact, maybe listen to in the car, you like podcasts for doing something like that instead of streaming the video, there's a podcast version of this available. You will find updates to that available at professormesser.com/podcasts. Okay, we're through the announcements, I think. Let's talk about answering questions today. What you can do is pop open a new browser window or go to a mobile device, and you can go to professormesser.com/QA. That will take you directly to answering the questions. You don't have to move from that page. Just stay right there for the duration of this hour. There are also apps available on your app store of choice for both iOS and Android. These are the Socrative student apps, and it will ask you for a room name. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word. The instructions for doing that also are available at professormesser.com/live. You can find that at any time during this event. And if you do that, there will be a question there. And the question you should see if you follow all of those instructions is, what is the top apple producing state in the U.S.? I am referring to the fruit, not the hardware manufacturer equipment software company. We're really talking about apples, like oranges, except apples. I think we are pretty clear about what that is. One state in the U.S. is really the top apple producing state. And if you are in Socrative, you will see that there are options available. Let's see if I can stick my head in here so you can see what's going on. So is it New York, Florida, California, Michigan, Washington, or Pennsylvania? It's got to be one of those, right? If you think you know the answer, you go to professormesser.com/QA. Almost gave you the old link there for doing that. It is one that at least you can take a guess at this. Now, this obviously is not an A+ question. This is one to get us accustomed to using Socrative. If you've never used this before, I want to be sure you can get in, see a question, know that it's there, and we'll see what the options are. Many of you are already there and answering the questions, and we're a little split. Let's see. California has 34% of the vote. Washington has 31% of the vote. And then we've got almost a tie for a four-way tie for third. New York, Florida, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. So what is the right place? What is the right apple producing state? What could it possibly be? Well, according to the U.S. Apple Association, and indeed there is a U.S. Apple Association, it is Washington, number one. Just behind it is New York, number 3 on the list, Michigan, 4 is Pennsylvania, and 5 is California. The reason I picked that question as our question of the day is today, July the 5th, is National Apple Turnover Day. That's one nice way to maybe get some more apples in, as if we were not enough apple pie in America on July the 4th. Well, we can do a little bit more apple pie on Apple Turnover Day. We're going to do a lot more questions in Socrative. Stay right there on that screen. We're going to go through a lot more of these exam Q&A. One thing to remember is not to put the question in the chat room. You want to go to Socrative by going to professormesser.com/QA. So a good way to do that. So what I like to do is, for the first question that we do today, is I like to give you a similar scenario that you get when you sit down for your actual exam. Some of the first things that you see on the exam are performance-based questions. On the CompTIA exam, most of it's multiple choice. We're accustomed to multiple choice. You pick A, B, C, and D. But one of the things that you do find on the exam is the first set of questions, and there's probably going to be more than one, are not multiple choice. They're anything but multiple choice. They might be fill in the blank. They might be matching. They might be putting things in order from highest to lowest or lowest to highest. There's a lot that might be there. So let's do a performance-based question first thing. And here is your performance-based question of the day. Put these technologies in order from fastest maximum bandwidth to slowest maximum bandwidth. And the options I have here are A, USB 2.0, B is Thunderbolt version 3, C is 100 base TX, D is SATA Revision 3.0, and E is IEEE 1394A. Now, don't want you to put this in the chat. What I want you to do is just tell me, because this is a fill in the blank, put them in order. If you think they're already in order from maximum bandwidth to slowest, all you have to put in is A, B, C, D, E and lock in your answer. So this is one where you really have to know what these different speeds would be, the fastest maximum bandwidths would be for these different technologies. And as you can see, these really have a different range here. There are all kinds of different technologies in here. But you do need to know on the CompTIA A+ exam what these different maximum bandwidths are. And I'll be seeing these as they go through. Maybe you know what they are. I'm looking at the list on my side as well. In fact, I have my side actually flipped. I wrote mine wrong. In fact, I did mine wrong. I'm looking at my list and I put them in order from slowest to fastest. So we'll look at ours separately as we go through this and figuring out these pieces, because I've already got them wrong. How can I mark myself wrong? Well, I did. But we'll be able to flip it around as we go through this. In fact, one of the things I can do is I can actually fix it while you're answering this question. See how I did that? It's all live, people. We don't record these things. Let's do the fastest maximum bandwidth to slowest. I have to move things around on my screen. Let's see if I can move, and then we'll do the other one. See, you can't see me doing this. You can sort of see me doing this if I do this. I'm actually editing my presentation here as we go. Let's do this one. We'll put that there. I'm already figuring out what the answers might be. Maybe we know what they are. And that's an important thing to remember, by the way, is as we're looking at this question, make sure you look at the proper question or read the question properly, because we're really asking about fastest maximum bandwidth to slowest. And I think a lot of you were putting in slowest to fastest when that's what really got me thinking, wait, did I do this wrong too? I did it wrong like you did as we started out. And now that I've mentioned it, everybody's going back and updating their questions, changing them around from fastest to slowest. You have to read the question. That's what I'm not doing, not reading the question. Let's see what the answer is to this one. Have you locked in your answer? Have you figured it out? Have you taken a guess? Because you should always guess. Fill in the blanks at least. Take a guess at, never leave a question blank on the exam. You should always have something there in the question. So what would be the order from maximum bandwidth to slowest? Here we go. There is the answer. I've scrambled them up and put the right order from maximum. I think I put them in the right order from maximum, fastest maximum to slowest. There we go. So you can see the first thing is the fastest one you can find is the one there, Thunderbolt version 3. That would be B. The second fastest in our list is D, SATA Revision 3.0 at 6 gigabits per second. Thunderbolt version 3, by the way, 40 gigabits per second. That version 3 has a huge amount of bandwidth available to it, which is why a lot of people are now using Thunderbolt to connect these external devices. It becomes very useful to have that level of bandwidth available. Third on our list is USB 2.0 at 480 megabits per second. Fourth on our list is IEEE 1394, which is FireWire. That is 400 megabits per second. And C in last place is 100 megabit Ethernet, 100 base TX at 100 megabits per second. So if you answered B, D, A, E, C, unlike me, I had to change it so it was correct. If you read the question properly and put it in that order, you would have gotten it correct. So well done on that. That's one of those things that you do have to make sure already, right out of the gate. Did we read the question right? There's a lot of information to know here. That's one of the reasons, by the way, that I recommend you skip over the performance-based questions when you start the exam, because you're sitting in this exam center, you've just started, you're very nervous, the adrenaline is flowing, you can't even understand what you're reading, and there's a lot to these questions. So what I do is I skip over all of them, and that's one thing that's unique. Well, not necessarily unique, but it is something that not all certifications allow you to do. This is on the CompTIA exams. You can jump around to any question at any time. You get the last question, you can jump into the middle, you can go back to the front, you can do it in any order you'd like. So one of the things I recommend is just skip over the performance-based questions, go directly to the multiple choice, get through the multiple choice as fast as you can, and hopefully the multiple choice questions will help you remember some of the things on the performance-based questions, and maybe that's something that might help. That's my suggestion. It's one strategy you might want to consider doing for your exam. So hopefully you did well with that. If you answered B, D, A, E, and C, you got that one right. Let's do one that's not a multiple, that's not a performance question. Let's go back to the multiple choice questions. I think this one's a multiple choice, and it talks about Windows 8 and migration. Which of the following would be the best way to migrate files and settings on a Windows 8 computer to another computer running Windows 8.1? So already we have a very particular scenario here, and I have some options available for you. Make sure you don't put these answers in the chat room. But here you go. We've got some options. A would be not on your screen. Let's put A on your screen. There we go. Would it be to use Windows Easy Transfer? B would be to create a Windows backup. C would be to run Upgrade Advisor. D would be to use OneDrive to transfer the files and settings. And E would be to copy the user files to an external drive. This is one of those questions, by the way, where you're asked about the best way. There may be on this answer multiple ways to accomplish this particular task that has been presented to you, which is which of these would be the best way to migrate files and settings on a Windows 8 computer to another computer running Windows 8.1. So you have to know what the best way is. Could you use multiples of these to do it? Yes, you probably could. In fact, you may be given an answer, a set of answers where every answer is possible, but they're really asking for the best way. One of the things I found on the exams is that the right answer is very clear. It's not going to be a situation where you're wondering, oh, I could go either way with this one. It's not. If you really know what the answer is, it will pop right up to the top, and you'll be able to find it very, very easily. And that's the challenge, of course, is you have to know these things when you're going through it. Is this really the best way to do it? Unless you've done it, unless you've done all 5 of these things, you may not really know what the best way is. So it's another one of those things you have to think about as you're working through these exams. You have to read the book, you have to watch videos, you have to get some hands-on. Hands-on can be very, very useful for this. Let's see how we did with this question. I'm going to click the How Do We Do button, and 74% said use Windows Easy Transfer, 73%. The next tied for second is D, use OneDrive to transfer the files and settings, and E, copy the user files to an external drive. And tied for third at 4% apiece is create a Windows backup and run Upgrade Advisor. Well, the vast majority, well, or at least the majority of you, maybe not vast, chose to use Windows Easy Transfer. So let's talk about migration methods. Which is the right answer for this one? Well, there's plenty of ways to do migrations on Windows. And the way that you would perform migrations, there's multiple ways. You can migrate side by side. You have 2 computers. You're upgrading a computer, and you want to keep all of your files and settings and migrate them to the new computer. You might also have a single computer, and you want to wipe everything on it, load a brand new operating system, but then also load up all of your configuration settings. That's another thing to think about. And you can do this a number of different ways. But one of the challenges that you're going to run into is that when you get to Windows 8 and Windows 8.1, a lot of the features that were previously there are no longer there anymore. And in fact, if you're moving from Windows 8 to Windows 8.1, some of the things that you've become accustomed to, like Windows Easy Transfer, is no longer available. Microsoft doesn't support providing any functionality to do an easy transfer between Windows 8 to Windows 8.1. In fact, what they require you to do if you want to perform a supported migration is you must take everything and send it out to OneDrive. That's it. That's your only choice for built-in Windows migration functionality. Now, there are a number of third-party products out there that you can use to do migrations like this. Third parties have realized, wow, Microsoft completely left people without any way to migrate between Windows 8 and 8.1 unless they were on effectively a high-speed network and able to transfer all this information to OneDrive. So one of the things they did was some third parties worked to create some options. But we're not talking about third-party products here. We're really talking about built-in capabilities in Windows 8 and 8.1. And if you're migrating between 8 to 8.1, the only thing that you're able to use that's built into the Windows operating system is to put everything out on OneDrive, install the Windows 8.1 or connect with the Windows 8.1 device, and it will pull down all of those files and all of those configuration settings. It works quite nicely. But it's just one of those things that you don't realize until you sit down with it. You're so accustomed to using Windows Easy Transfer that suddenly now it's not available to you. So unfortunately, the 74% of us that answered A, use Windows Easy Transfer, not the correct answer. So we learned something today. This is valuable information. How you would do that is to use OneDrive. If you answer D, use OneDrive to transfer the files and settings, the 9% of you that answered that one are the ones that got it absolutely correct. Easy transfer was not the right answer. And I'm speaking from experience that I have already been bit on this one before, where I sat down on a Windows 8 machine. I wanted to migrate everything to 8.1 on a separate machine. I loaded up Windows Easy Transfer, and it didn't work. There was no Windows Easy Transfer option for me. So one of those challenges to be able to do that. One of the things you'll notice, a lot of the questions we do it in the chat room, people are asking, is that the Windows versions that are supported on the 22901, the 22902 exam, primarily the 22902 exam, is Windows 8.1. It's Windows Vista, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 8.1. Those are the 4 operating systems you'll need to know. Really, it's 3. Windows 8 and 8.1 are effectively the same configurations, the same operating system. But Windows 10 is not part currently of the A+ certification. I would expect they would add that through there. So it's one of those things you have to think about. So if you answer D, use OneDrive to transfer the files and settings, that would be your correct answer. Bummer, huh? I hate that when that happens. Well, I've got a better question. Let's flip back over to maybe a 901 question to be able to do another one of these. Which of these motherboards would fit into the smallest possible mounting case? Which one of these would fit into the smallest possible mounting case? I have some options for you. These options are A is BTX, option B is Mini ITX, option C is Micro ATX, option D is ATX, and option E is Pico ATX or Pico ATX. This is one of those options and things you need to know for the exam because there are a number of different motherboard formats you have to know. There aren't a lot of them you have to know. If you had to know all of them, you'd probably have to know over 50 different motherboard types. I think I counted them once. How many motherboard types are out there? There's a lot. But fortunately for the exam, you only need to know a handful of them. So if you're going to put these in a case, if you're going to put your motherboard, you're building your system, you're getting a case, you want to get the smallest possible case because you don't have a lot of room. What size motherboard would you use? That'd be a good way to do it. So maybe that would be an excellent way to go about thinking about how could I find the smallest possible motherboard. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and you can answer the question there. What would be the right answer for these? There's a lot of options out there to be able to do this. Maybe some of you have built your own computers. You've already worked through some of the options there. This would be a really good idea. If you've ever thought about building a computer, maybe just planning to build a computer, maybe you don't actually order the equipment, go out and start speccing one out. Go to pcpartpicker.com, start building a computer. Find out if you pick this particular motherboard, what are the processor options available for you? If you pick this particular motherboard, what are the memory options? And then you can think, but wait, I want to use faster memory or I want a faster CPU. So if I upgrade the CPU, well, now I have to use a different motherboard. What options are available? And PC Part Picker allows you to do a compatibility check. It will only show you the things that are compatible. So it's a very, very easy way to build a system and know that the parts that you're picking are going to be compatible with each other when you finally install them, certainly for the most part. So let's see how we did with these motherboard types. And we can see that we're a little torn. 53% said Pico ATX. We had 31% that said Mini ITX and 26% that said Micro ATX. And I must admit, I made up some of these. Some of these are accurate and real. Some of these maybe not so much. So we should look at what our options might be. For this particular answer, the options that we're looking at deal with the ITX form factor. ITX form factor have been around for quite a long time. There's a number of different sizes of ITX. The smallest ITX that you need to be aware of from that list is the Mini ITX. It's got a lot of different options available from an ITX perspective. I've got, in fact, on this list, the small form factors are useful to know. Having these small form factors can be really, really useful to have this one here. And one of the things that I did in my videos is show you a list of all the form factors next to each other. So you can get a pretty good idea of what those options might be. And in fact, I tried to put all of them into a single view. So you get a pretty good idea of what the different options might be, what you can use, what the motherboard sizes are. It becomes a little bit of a challenge to know all of these different things. The smallest form factor in this list, though, is the Mini ITX, the one that we see on the screen right here, this Mini ITX motherboard. If we look at the list of all the different options here, BTX is a large motherboard type that's not even used anymore, so you can throw that one out. ATX is probably the largest motherboard type that we commonly use these days. There's no Pico ITX. Where'd I get that from? Probably a bad Saturday Night Live bit. We've got really the options are between a Micro ATX and Mini ITX. A Micro ATX and a Mini ITX. And in this case, it's the ITX form factor that really is the smallest. So the Mini ITX, the one that we see right here, look at this small little form factor on here. I have barely enough room to put power. I've got one slot available. I managed to get 2 memory slots on this, and you're done. There's no more room on this motherboard to be able to do this. Yeah, there is a Pico style motherboard type out there, but not a Pico ATX. So the correct answer is actually B. If you're one of the 33% of you that answered Mini ITX, you would have got that one absolutely right. The Mini ITX is the right one to be able to do that. There's so much that you have to know on the exam. There are extensive, especially in the 22901 and then the 22902. You have to know hardware, and you have to know operating systems. You have to know security. You have to know networking. You have to know all the speeds and feeds. You have to know the motherboard types. You have all that memory information you need to know. There's information about troubleshooting on both of the exams, and all of this is in my videos. I give you exactly what you need to know, and for word from the CompTIA exam objectives in my videos. And a lot of people like to take notes as they go through and look at my videos. And that's a great idea. You should absolutely consider doing that as you step through this. But not everybody has time to look through every single video, take notes on every single thing. So I've already done it for you. I've created my A+ course notes to be able to provide that. It's got extensive information about the things that we just talked about. Here's motherboards. We just talked about the motherboards. They're in there. This is the 901 on the left and the 902 on the right. Here's memory and CPU socket types and DDR speeds and RAID. On the 902, there's operating system information, the differences between 8.1 and 8.2. If you're planning a Windows installation, it goes right through the list of what you need to know for the exam. And it's all right there and available for you. If you'd like more information on this, something that might help you, they're only $10 a piece. I've also got a book available, a physical printed book, because these are PDF files, but a lot of people like a physical printed book, and you can get one of those for an extra $15 over that. So it's $35, and you can get the book, and I'll ship it to you, and it's there. You can find out all about this at professormesser.com/A+CN. It really becomes handy to be able to get through those. Let's get another question in before things get too far. Here's your question. You've just installed a new application, but now your computer refuses to boot. I love it when that happens. Which of these would be the best way to resolve this issue? This is a pretty common problem when you run into these applications that don't play right with an operating system. They've done something that's caused the entire system now not to boot. So that's a little bit more of a challenge to be able to have that there. That's one where I want to be able to know where I should go from here. What is the best way to resolve this issue? I have some options for you. Would it be to A, run system restore? Would it be B, restore from the latest Windows backup? Would it be C, run disk error checking? Would it be D, restore from a recovery image? Or would it be E, restore from factory defaults? One of those is going to be on the options that you're going to be able to choose from. One of those would be the best option on there. Now, one of the things you have to think about, there might be other things you would do. Well, that's not the option. On your exam, you get a question, and then you get the possibilities that you could choose from, and that's it. You can't think outside the scope of the question. So make sure you focus on exactly what the question is asking for and exactly the options available to you, and pick the one that is the best option to be able to work through those. If you want to answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. So on the chat room, some people saying there was no Windows 10 on there. Yes, as I mentioned, Windows 10 is not in the 22901 or 22902 exams. You do not need to know anything about Windows 10 for the exam. You can always go to CompTIA and download their exam objectives. They tell you exactly what you need to know. Windows 10 is not on there. So that'd be simple to have that there. So everything is in there because working through those pieces is pretty important to know. So make sure you know. A lot of people don't even know the exam objectives are there. They'll study Windows 10, walk into the exam and say, I didn't get any Windows 10 questions. That's right, because Windows 10 is not on the exam. So if you focus on exactly what's on the exam objectives, you will pass your exam. They stay very close to those exam objectives, and the exam objectives is extensive. Working through those becomes very handy to have that very detailed step-by-step overview of what to know. Other certification companies don't do this. Cisco doesn't do that. VMware doesn't do that. Microsoft doesn't do that. CompTIA is very unique at providing that level of detail. So let's see how we did with this question. You've just installed the new application. Now the computer's not booting. What would be the best way to resolve this issue? 52%. We got at least a majority here says to run system restore, but 20%, still a nice group of people, said to restore from the latest Windows backup. A tie for third at 14% apiece said to run disk error checking or restore from a recovery image, and only 1% of you said to restore from the factory defaults. So what would be the right answer if you were trying to resolve a problem? You've just done something on your computer. You've now installed a new app and nothing's happening. Well, the perfect way to resolve this issue is with System Restore. Because when you install a new application, a restore point is, as long as System Restore is enabled, and it is by default in your system, when you install that application, it creates a restore point automatically. So it effectively creates a snapshot in time, a point in time where it knows everything prior to that point is working, and now we're going to install the application and we're going to see what happens. You can get to System Restore inside of Windows, but if you can't get into Windows, you can always start from the Advanced Boot Options screen by pressing F8 when Windows starts up and being able to get there. That's one of the biggest challenges to be able to understand what to do, is knowing how to get there. And you will be asked on the exam, if they ask about System Restore, they may ask you, how do I get System Restore working? How do I get these things happening? On Windows 7, Windows Vista, Windows 8, and 8.1, you can get to the System Restore configuration settings from inside the control panel under System, Advanced System Settings, and the System Protection tab. It becomes in handy. By the way, this doesn't fix your system if you become infected. Certainly not with ransomware, which really messes up your system, because these snapshots in time are only saving the configuration of Windows. They're not saving your files. So this is not an option for you if you are attacked with a malware. Malware and viruses also will infect restore points. So they already know that you've got these restore points, and you'll probably try to recover from them. So they will also go into the restore points and infect those as well. These malware authors are sneaky. There's nothing that beats a backup, but a very quick way to change your configuration back to a certain point of time It's very, very simple with System Restore, and it's a very good way to do that. So here are 50% of you answered correctly. A is the right answer. Run System Restore. That's the best way to do that. Restoring from the latest Windows backup, certainly an option, but it's not the best option. And that was the question, which of these would be the best way to resolve this issue? Restoring from Windows backup is a much longer process. We have to bring all of our files in. We have to make sure that we're restoring over the files that were changed by the application. Maybe we have to restore the entire backup. This could take hours to be able to perform a backup. It would probably work, assuming you had a backup that was the latest, but it's certainly not the best option given the ones that are available. Running disk error checking, you have no idea if the computer refusing to boot has anything to do with the disk. So that's really taking a stab in the dark and certainly not the best option given the others that are here. Restoring from a recovery image, well, again, we aren't quite sure what the problem is, and we're not, and again, recovering this from an image is a very, or certainly can be a very involved process. You're never also sure that the image has the latest information on your computer. So it's certainly not up to date. So indeed, not the best way to resolve that. It is an option, but perhaps not the best option. And restoring from factory defaults deletes everything on the computer. Really not the best option, which means indeed A, run System Restore is the correct answer. 51% of you got that one absolutely right. Let's get through another question. We've got more here we can go through. This one dealing with RAID. One of the drives in your RAID 0 array has failed. That's not good. Which of the following would be the best next step? What can we do? Got a bad drive. So what should be our option when we have a bad drive in our RAID 0 array? Would it be to A, replace all of the drives in the array and resync the array? Would it be B, replace the bad drive and restart the array? Would it be C, replace all drives in the array and restore from backup? Would it be D, replace the bad drive and restore from backup? Or would it be E, replace the bad drive and resync the array? One of these would be the best way to do this. Maybe you know what the answer is. If you do, don't answer in the chat room. You're going to go to professormesser.com/QA into the Socrative and choose what the option is to be able to do that. I think that's one that comes in handy. It's so something you definitely need to know when you're working on arrays. If you've got some RAID arrays, I've got some RAID arrays here, and you have to know if something goes wrong, how do you resolve this issue? Keep everything running. Make sure people have access to their data. Make sure you don't lose any data. It's all here. Maybe you know what it is. It's a good chance for you to go in and find the answer. I think that's one where whenever I'm trying to work through all of these problems, I like to be able to step through what my options are. So make sure you go through all of these and go through each one of those options to determine, is this what I should be doing? How about this one? You may have to step through each one of them and at least get rid of the ones you know are not going to be the right ones. I'm going to take a sneak peek, see how we're doing. My goal with these questions, by the way, is 50% of you I want to get right and being able to work through this. Maybe some of you know what these things are. You can at least step through them, but if I can get half of you that know it and get it right, that's good. I don't want a lot of you knowing the answers. I want us to learn something. The only way you're going to learn is if you get some of these wrong. So this would be a good way to at least, you'll notice a couple steps in these questions too, where I have a question and then I make sure you have to step through a couple of different things to get to the answer. So let's see how we did with this one. How did we do? Well, 45% of us said to replace the bad drive and restore from backup. 27% of us said to replace the bad drive and resync the array. 15% said to replace all the drives in the array and restore from backup. 11% said to replace the bad drive and restart the array. And then 4% said to replace all the drives in the array and resync the array. So this is a bit of a challenge knowing what to do with a RAID configuration. Well, if you've seen my 22902 videos, I have a video that steps through recovery of a RAID. And I mentioned what each one of those different RAID levels require and how many disks are required to have the array even to begin with, and then what happens when there's a failure. So in our particular question, it was about RAID 0. So if we look at RAID 0, we know that we're going to have 2 or more disks in this RAID array. The failure condition means that a single drive failure breaks the array and there's data loss. And this is one of the challenges you have with a RAID 0 configuration, is that it puts a little bit of information on one drive and a little bit of information on another drive. So it splits your data between the drives. There's no redundancy. RAID 0 is 0 redundancy. So that's one of the problems, is that there's nothing to recover from if you lose a drive in RAID 0. This is probably why not a lot of people use RAID 0. It's not the best RAID 0 to be able to work through that. So one of the things here you'll notice is that if it breaks the array and there is data loss, what are we going to be able to do here? Well, if we look at all of the options available to us, replacing all the drives in the array and resyncing the array, anytime you see a question replacing all the drives, why would I replace the good drives? The drives that are good can stay there. So the one where the A says replace all drives, C says replace all drives, we know we can throw those out immediately. It's not one of those two. Replacing the bad drive and restarting the array, well, we know that there is data loss. We can't just restart the array and expect everything to be working, because half of the data that was on this 2-disk array, assuming there's 2 disks there, half of the data is now gone. We don't have a way to restart the array and have everything back the way it was. So option E would be another one of those. We're replacing the bad drive and resyncing the array. There's nothing to sync. There's nothing there you can work through. Really, the best answer and the only answer for this particular question is D, to replace the bad drive and restore everything from backup, because that is the only way to be able to do that. In the chat room, somebody asks, why don't I ever mention RAID 6? It's not on my list either. I have RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5, and RAID 10, which you'll often see written as RAID 1 plus 0. Reason RAIDs, there are many different RAID types, well beyond these 4 that are listed here. RAID 6 is one of them. There's other RAID types as well, but none of those RAID types are mentioned in the CompTIA exam objectives. You should stick to the CompTIA exam objectives, and they will tell you exactly what you need to know. There's no reason to go outside the scope of those exam objectives. We could certainly spend a lot of time. I could spend a day talking about RAID, setting it up, configuring it, watching it sync, going through the maintenance of it, replacing drives. There's plenty to do, but that's well outside the scope of the exam. Everything that I do is going to be right in the scope of the exam. So it's one of those that you have to think about as you're going through the exam and working through these pieces. One of the things you also notice whenever you're working through this, there's a good bit of hands-on the A+ exam. I always tell people, make sure that you read a good book, make sure that you've got some good videos to watch, maybe you get a couple of books, but get a lot of hands-on. And one way to get some good hands-on is with the live labs from GTS Learning. They've created labs that have a lot of information that you could go through for the exam. I've got the labs up on my screen. I'm going to show you what some of these are for the 901. I've got some of these, in fact, I've got views of this. Maybe I don't have it in this presentation, in fact, but the live labs themselves have all of the things that you need to know for both the 901 and 902. You can set up networking, you can set up the operating system, you can install Windows, you can run through a configuration for security. They've got a lot to look at. And they've got more that come with the live labs. Because this is GTS Learning, they are an authorized partner of CompTIA. All of their materials are CompTIA approved. So you've got not just the live labs, but when you get the live labs, you also get their ebook, which is their A+ certification book, which has my videos integrated into the book. They've also got practice questions available for you. And you get that when you get the 12 months of the live labs for $109. The special price, by the way, the $109 is not what you would get if you went to their website. You have to go to professormesser.com/live labs to get the discounted price. If you just want the ebook, they got a nice ebook too, $35. It's the book that I used to help create my videos. And then once my videos were done, they integrated them into the ebook. There's a whole chicken and egg thing happening there, but we managed to do it. All the folks at GTS Learning are great people to work with. So I would not be working with them if I didn't think they had good materials, and something you can check out at professormesser.com/live labs. Another good way to get some hands-on and be able to do everything through your browser for the hands-on too. Nothing special to load up. Just a great way to do that. And a lot of the screenshots and things that you see me doing on my videos, I'm really doing in a live lab because you have complete control to do anything you want. It's a virtual environment. I love using that. Let's do another question. I've got more here that we can go through. The question is, which of the following would be the most likely use of the chmod command? Chmod, what is that? Well, it's a good question. What would be the most likely use of the chmod command? Would it be to A, find text in a file? Would it be B, change the access permission of a file? Would it be C, display the current working directory? Would it be D, change the ownership of a file? Or E, convert and copy a file? Being able to work through these. Chmod is the one we need to know and going to work through that. It's one of those whenever I start looking at what do I need to do with this and work through that. That's one that I do want to go through and know what the different options are. If you think you know, go to professormesser.com/QA and you'll be able to answer the question of the most likely use of the chmod command. I hope many of you have done this one before. This is one you have to know. It's in the CompTIA exam objectives. I keep going back to those exam objectives and being able to work through there and knowing what all of those different commands are. Make sure you know what this particular command is. It is definitely written up very specific on the exam objectives to know this. So make sure you step through these and know them as well. Which one of these would be the most likely use of the chmod command? And if you don't know, absolutely guess. People in the chat room saying, I have no idea. I'm going to take a guess. And you should do that on your exam as well. Don't leave a question blank. You need to at least try the answers. You don't get penalized. You don't get points off for getting a question wrong. You need to be able to at least fill in every single blank that's there. So even if you're at the last 60 seconds and you've got 10 questions left, I don't know, do a Christmas tree, make them all A, do something. But don't leave them blank, whatever you do. At least get an opportunity and a chance to get those questions answered. Let's see how we did with the chmod command. Well, we've got B, 71%, 70% said to change access permission of a file. Was it really? Because 19% said change the ownership of a file. And single digits, only 6% said display the current working directory, 5% said convert and copy a file, and 1% said find text in a file. So that's one of those things where now, which one is it? We're kind of torn, although 69%, that's a pretty healthy number for chmod. Well, chmod, for those not familiar, is a Linux and Mac OS command, one that you would find in those POSIX and Unix environments. Being able to work through that, it changes the mode of a file system object. The modes in Linux would be to configure the file as a read-only file or a writable file. It's one that would be an execute. I can execute this file because I've changed the rights and permissions on it. So that's one where whenever you're modifying, changing the mode of the file, it would be chmod, change mode. It's really what we're doing. I don't know why it's just not called change mode. It's one more letter, Linux people. This is why people are frustrated with you, because it's so cryptic to be able to know this, but there are a ton of commands in Linux that you need to know for the exam. These are really Linux and Mac OS commands that you would use, and you have to know them. They are in the exam objectives. Make sure you're very familiar with these and being able to work through them. And in my videos, I show you these commands, and we even do some hands-on with some of them to be able to become accustomed to them. Now, if you are watching this video for either live or you're watching it after the fact on a replay for a continuing education unit, you already have your A+, Network Plus, or Security Plus, or maybe you need CEUs for something else, then you can get 1 hour of webinar credit for watching this particular event. All you have to do is go to the top of the website or bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a Contact Us link there. You have to follow this to be able to earn the CEU. Once you click on the Contact Us, it'll bring up a form. Put in your name, put in your email address, mention that this is the July 2017 A+ study group, and you want to put the special code word of chmod. chmod is the one that I know that you must have watched this because you got all the way through this video. You were able to get to this special code word, and then I will send you back an email that certifies that you must have watched this. And then you can use that email and the contents inside of that to be able to work on getting that CEU, apply it to whatever you're doing to be able to work through those. So if we look at the chmod and what we're doing, the 68% that said change the access permission of a file, B indeed was the correct answer. Changing ownership of a file, very close to the chmod, it's chown is the command to know that. So it's very close. This 20% of you were on the right track. Chown would be to change the ownership of a file. Changing the mode of a file is the chmod, the mode being access permissions. One of the modes being access permissions anyway. Finding text in a file, that would be grep. That's not the chmod command. Displaying the current working directory, the cwd, current working directory. And to be able to see that. And converting and copying a file would be the dd command, being able to work through those and have those there as well. So those of you that answered B, change the access permission of a file, got that one absolutely right. Let's get another question in before we're done for the day. We'll probably get one, maybe two. We'll see how these go. But this is a long question that asks, a customer is reporting that one of their applications has stopped working 10 times over the last 5 days. Been there. Customer has rebooted after each issue. Which of these would be the best way to gather information about this issue? Let's see what we can do to be able to know exactly what the options might be. Well, it would be A, check the BIOS logs. It might be B, view performance monitor statistics. It might be C, run the local security policy tool. It could be D, check the Windows reliability monitor, or use E, view the smart statistics, or technically view the SMART statistics. Smart statistics. So one of those is going to be the right answer for being able to gather information about this issue. Maybe you've run into this problem where an application just keeps failing over and over and over and over again and trying to get these applications to work, and you're now trying to figure out what the problem is. What can you do? Now, there may be, as I mentioned, other things that you can do as well. So, in fact, people in the chat room are going, I wouldn't do any of these things. Well, that wasn't the question. The question is, which of these would be the best way to gather information about this issue? Maybe the things that you would do are things that are currently not available to you. Maybe they're restricted on the machine you were going to run, or maybe you've been told not to do those things. You have 5 options here to choose from. And this is important on the exam, is every question is a self-contained entity. Make sure you just look at the options available. Something very common on the exam. In fact, they may not put what the 95% of you may do first. They may even throw that one out, and they only give you the next 5 things. And then you have to find out what the best way would be based on the things that are already there. So that becomes pretty important on the exam. A lot of people get messed up on the exam because they're worried that what they would do is not in the list. Well, they're not asking you what you would do. They're asking you, given these 5 options, which of these would be the best way to do it? That is the best way to do it. So that's the best way to approach those problems too, being able to work through these. Let's see how we did. We've got a number of you that have answered this one already, so I'll click the how do we do. Well, 44% of us said to view the performance monitor statistics. On second place, 27% said to check the Windows reliability monitor. 16%, almost a tie for third, is to view the smart statistics and to check the BIOS logs. And nobody, for some reason, has said to run the local security policy tool. At least somebody always chooses one of those, right? Well, in this case, no. Nobody said local security policy had anything to do with this. So which one of these would be the best way to deal with an application crash? Well, let's talk about applications crashing, because this is a common problem, and it's one of the problems that are specifically written in the CompTIA exam objectives for you to know how to troubleshoot. So when an application fails, it may just disappear. I love those apps. You're working along, you're typing, and then suddenly it's gone. What happened? No error message, no notice, it's just gone. That's it. Or it might leave an error message on the screen and tell you the application is no longer working. I am searching for a solution to the problem. How many times has that ever worked? The answer is 0. There's some things you can do immediately. You can go to the event log and you can sort through the event log. But if you've ever been in there, event log is a huge problem to be able to decipher things, especially as with this particular question, the problem is 10 times over the last 5 days. Can you imagine going through 5 days of event logs in Windows? It's horrible. Nobody would ever want to do something like that normally, but sometimes that's your only choice. And it's certainly a valid choice to find out what was happening during that time frame. One of the other options is to check Reliability Monitor. If you've never used Reliability Monitor, it's a fantastic tool. It's not one I made up. Sounds like I made that one up. I didn't make that one up. That's a real tool. Reliability Monitor, especially if you're having an application problem or you're trying to troubleshoot application problems after the fact, that's a great tool to have. And ultimately, you may just want to reinstall the app. Maybe somebody deleted an important file that keeps that application working, and that would be a good way to make sure everything is on the system, the files are correct, everything is there, something that you'd be able to do with that. Now, I mentioned Reliability Monitor because it is really a nice tool. You've got tons of information here. It effectively takes everything in the event viewer and consolidates down the application problems and gives you this very nice timeline of applications, the ones that are working badly, the ones that are limping along, the ones that are working okay, and you can step through and very easily move back and forth. So if something like you've got an application that's not responding, it will show you. There's Microsoft Reader that failed to update. So you can step through over time what has happened with this particular application and really focus in on the events surrounding that particular problem. It's a great way to narrow down where some problems might be happening, and it keeps and stores them automatically in your Windows device. So you don't have to predefine or set it up before the fact. It's just always there and waiting for you to use it. So you could, if you're on Windows right now, you could run your Reliability Monitor and be able to see what's going on there. It becomes really useful to have that functionality. So if we look at the possible options, there's my 1%. Somebody, thank you, chose Local Security Policy Tool, which is not correct. It would not be Local Security Policy Tool to be able to work through that. The 13% of you check the BIOS logs. The BIOS generally doesn't save information about the applications. So the BIOS logs aren't going to be able to help us very much in there at all. The smart statistics are focused on drive statistics. How well are the storage devices performing? Well, we don't know in this case if the problem that we're having has anything to do with the storage device. In fact, the storage device may be working perfectly, which means viewing the smart statistics is not going to help us at all. That's a stab in the dark and definitely not the right answer given the options available. The 42% said to view the Performance Monitor statistics, and Performance Monitor can provide you with a lot of information of what's going on, but it has to be running, or you have had to set it up beforehand to collect that data over time. You can't just start Performance Monitor and go back 5 days to see what happened 5 days ago. Performance Monitor doesn't work that way. So in this particular scenario where our problem has been happening for a while and we've just been called to be able to fix this problem, Performance Monitor is not going to be able to gather information about what happened over that time frame. In fact, it is definitely the Windows Reliability Monitor. 26% of you, yeah, we need to check Reliability Monitor to gather information about what was going on during that time frame. So that's one we can really work through. We've got time for one more. I think we can squeeze in one more answer here and being able to work through it. I think I've got one I can bring up here and work through these pieces. Let's go to the next question. This is a video daily double, a visual daily double, picture daily double. And it's a connector. There's the connector. And it asks, which of the following would be most associated with this connector? Would it be an external RAID array? Would it be high-speed Ethernet connectivity? Would it be a local router configuration? Would it be a wired mouse connection? Or would it be speaker output? Which one of those answers best fits this connector? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and ask for that. I've got a better picture of it. Here's a bigger picture of the connector. There it is. My head in the way, but you can kind of see it there. That is the connector that we're talking about. Maybe go back to the other view. That's a little bit better view of the connector, I think, for you to work through. Maybe you know what this connector is. This is a hard one because it's visually, we can see the connector, and maybe you know what the connector is. But now you have to know how that connector is used. I mentioned to you earlier, I like to make two-step questions. This is a two-step question. Knowing what this is one thing, but I didn't ask you what it was. That'd be too easy. Why would I do that? I showed you the connector and said, how do you use it? And that's what CompTIA is going to be asking you as well. CompTIA doesn't ask you straightforward questions. Here's a connector. Give me the name of the connector. They're not even interested in that part. They want to know if you understand how to implement that technology. How do I use this technology in being able to work through these? Maybe one of these. and being able to work through that is the way to do it. Maybe you've worked with these connectors before and you know, I know what these are. Or maybe you know what some of the connectors are for these other types. And you're like, I haven't seen that before with that particular connector type, which doesn't necessarily tell you that's exactly what it is, but maybe you know what it isn't. So that might help you as well to try to figure out all of those pieces. Hard one to Google, isn't it? See, it's one of the challenges. They try to make these questions so you can't Google them either. As I'm putting these questions together, it takes me half a day to build these presentations. And as I'm going through them, I'm thinking, how can I make this one so that you really have to look at the question as it is and figure this out? So let's see how we did with this answer. How did we do? Well, we said 65% said we plug it into an external RAID array, but 16% said it's used for high-speed Ethernet connectivity. 10% said speaker output, and then single digits for a local router configuration or wired mouse connection. So what is it? And being able to work through it. Well, let's see what this type is. Indeed, this is an IEEE 1394 connector. It's FireWire. It's a FireWire connector. Although FireWire is sort of an Apple term, a lot of manufacturers use this connector type. It is not an Apple technology. This is also called IEEE 1394. It's called iLink. It's called Links. It's called many different things. But you can always know that it's IEEE 1394 because that's what IEEE called it, and being able to work through this. This is commonly used for connectivity to external devices. There's different flavors of this. We even talked about FireWire 400 earlier in our performance-based question. The very first question we had today was about had a FireWire 400 in there, or IEEE 1394A, I think is what I told you it was, because if I told you it was FireWire 400, you would already know that it was 400 megabits per second, half duplex. So whenever you start looking through all the different options for FireWire, there's also FireWire 800. Now you'll notice these speeds are not even close to what we're seeing today on Thunderbolt, on the DisplayPort, on some of the Ethernet even is faster than this at gigabit Ethernet. So that's why you don't see FireWire being used so much. A lot of your legacy devices, cameras, maybe storage devices may still have FireWire on them, may require that, but it's very quickly being replaced by other technologies like Thunderbolt, like USB 3.0, and being able to work through them. If you put all the FireWire and USB next to each other, you can see there's USB, a 6-pin, a 4-pin, and a 9-pin FireWire, so you can see what all those differences are. The one from our picture is that 6-pin FireWire Alpha, that 400 megabit per second FireWire, being able to work through that. So if you answered, we did good on this one. An external RAID array, 66% of you said that's FireWire, and I would plug it into my drives to be able to transfer data as fast as possible. Very common to see a RAID array configured so that you can plug in a FireWire connection. These days, we're moving quickly to 3.0 of USB, and we're moving quickly to Thunderbolt. There's still some FireWire arrays that are out there. The reason we would pick that one definitely is that you would not use that type of connection at all for any type of Ethernet connectivity. You would never use it to locally configure a router. That's a serial type connection, or USB. We would not use it for a wired mouse connection. These days, that's USB. In the past, it's been a mini DIN connection for a wired mouse connection. And speaker output is either going to use USB or it's going to use a TRS connector, a tip ring sleeve connector, to be able to plug in any of the speakers and being able to hear those on a computer-based connection, being able to work through all of those. So if you answered A for the external RAID array, you got that one absolutely right. Well done. I think it was a good way to kind of end the set of questions for today and being able to work through all of those. Every question you got today came directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. All of my videos come directly from the exam objectives. I use the exam objectives as a list of things I should put in my video. So I use this as a very specific outline, and that's what I use to build every single one of my videos. So I know everything in my videos came directly from the exam objectives because that's what I used to be able to do that. You should get them as well. Go to the Google machine, type in CompTIA exam objectives. You can also go to professormesser.com/objectives, and I'll redirect you over to the CompTIA site as well. Well, we've come down to another hour of A+ Q&A. We've got another hour after this of live calls, so you're welcome to call in and ask questions in the chat room. But I have another A+ study group next month. Usually it's the first Wednesday of the month, but next month it's the second Wednesday of the month. August is a big month of Wednesdays, so I get to skip one there at the beginning. So the next one will be August the 9th in about a month, and we'll do another live A+. And if this is after August the 9th of 2017, you're wondering when is the next event, you can always go to professormesser.com/calendar, and I will tell you when the next event is by the list that is right there. For example, next week at this time is a Network Plus study group. A week from that is a Security Plus study group. We skip a couple weeks and we're back to A+ again. So you never know what might be going on here. Maybe I'll add another event. Who knows? There's no telling what's going to happen here. And the best way to tell is to go to my calendar and find out. Well, you can, of course, get my daily pop quiz and find out what's going every day on my Twitter feed at professormesser.com/Twitter. All of my videos will always be posted on YouTube. I encourage you to subscribe there. We're approaching 200,000 subscribers. I cannot believe it. Thank you for your support. You can see more about that at professormesser.com/YouTube. My A+ course notes are available. If you need a quick way to get notes for this course, great way to do it. So professormesser.com/A+CN for the A+ course notes. There's also the pop quiz collection. Just check Q&A. You can do another 1,300 questions just like the ones you got today at professormesser.com/PQC for the pop quiz collection. And my thanks again to GTS Learning and their special pricing for the professormesser.com/live labs. Again, we do this every month, and I couldn't do it without you. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to do this another time next week for Network Plus. We'll do this again in a month for another set of A+ questions. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time on the A+ study group. Those questions today were a little difficult. Those were hard ones. Did I make them too hard? I don't think so. I think they probably did. But they were the kind of questions you're going to get on the exam. So that's one of those things you just deal with. So let's see if I can get the phone lines up and running. That's next on my list of things to do here. Why am I getting questions? I'm getting things popping up on my screen. There's the thing I need to dial into. Let's get the phone lines. You can see there's no production team here, by the way. This is just me doing this. Let's host a show. Let's start the show. Get my phone lines ready there. I'll call into the show. I need to turn this down because it's really loud. Call in there, and it's going to go beep, beep, beep. I hope it is. Oh, I need to turn it on.
Studios host and
yes. What do I do?
Please enter your show number.
Well, thank you. I will enter my show number that I'm not going to show you on my screen because that's just a...
Enter your 6-digit PIN number.
All right. And I'll put this here and we'll type that in and welcome. So there you can see the number on the screen. If you would like to call in, you can do this right now at 855-785-7545. Also on Skype. No Skype minutes required. This is toll free. No Skype minutes. +1 855-785-RJ45. I'll also take questions from the chat room as well. So you've got plenty of things that you can put in. I will be able to see these. I see the options, the things going by, the questions, the ideas you throw out during the event. I try to answer them as we go, but if there's something I missed or other questions you have, you can put them in the chat room as well. I'll be glad to go through those. Let's go right to the calls, though. We'll go to the 646 area code. There's the caller. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hello?
Hi, what's your name?
Yes, my name is Dario.
Hey, Dario. Go ahead with your question. What's up?
Yes, I have a question regarding how the questions for the CompTIA. So even though let's say I memorize all, like, for example, like the speeds of USB and FireWire, and let's say you have a question. Are the questions going to be? How do you approach if the questions for that exam for question regarding some with troubleshooting and the wording is tricky. How do you approach answering to get the right answer in the multiple choice?
It's a little bit of a challenge because you really don't know what the questions are going to be until you sit down for the exam. And a lot of people find that on the CompTIA exam, they don't tend to ask questions that are straightforward. They're not going to ask you a question that says, how fast is FireWire 400? They're not. They just don't ask that. That's too easy, because all you do is memorize the speeds and the feeds and you're done. I think a question that tends to be a little more along their style is one that's either going to have you comparing that speed against other interfaces. Very similar to the performance-based question I gave at the beginning of the study group, was one that had 5 different interfaces. Now put them in order from fastest to slowest. That's a really good example. Another one that they might do is very similar to the last question I gave, which was about the connector. Here's a picture of a connector. What does this do? And it's not asking you for speed or feed or even what the name of the connector is. It's really asking you how you use it. And I think if you approach the exam with, how do I use the technology that's listed here? Here's Windows 7, and I need to understand how to install it. How do I do that? And I think a lot of the questions of the exam focus on how you use the technology rather than what the technology is. I see that a lot when I'm doing labs, in the live labs that, for instance, that I mentioned earlier. These are labs where you're actually going through and configuring and setting up and running tests. I think that's some of the best things that you can do. Get plenty of hands-on, and I don't think the questions on the exam are going to give you any problem.
Okay. Yeah, because the reason I asked that is there's you don't have much time to really spend too much time on the questions.
Yep.
Since you have 90 minutes and you have maximum of 90. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. You don't have a lot of time. Yeah. And that's why I even mentioned skip over the performance-based questions at the beginning, get through as many of the multiple choice. There's also a flag option. As you're going through a question, if I don't know the question 100%, I'm just not completely sure I answered that one right, I flag it. I put a check mark on it. And when you're done with the exam, it gives you a big page that shows you all the questions you flagged, and you can jump back to those and maybe read through them again. Maybe something you saw elsewhere on the exam has triggered you to know, oh, I now know what they were asking. I now know the answer. I can figure that one out too. That may be a good way to approach it as well. Use all of those strategies that you can so that you can ultimately come out of that exam with the best possible score.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for calling, Dario. Good luck. That's all. You never know. Before the exam hits, you never know what you're going to be faced with. The questions you get are obviously going to be completely different than the questions somebody else gets, because it's always a random grouping of questions that are there. And they have a massive pool of things that are there. The chat room people are even saying, so why do I need to memorize these things? Why do you need to know the number of pins on RAM cards? Nobody said that you need to know the number of pins on RAM cards, by the way. I don't know why that always comes up. People say, I memorized all the pins. Well, nothing in the exam objectives say that you need to know what the pins are. They say that you need to recognize the memory. And obviously the number of pins on the memory is a good way to know it. They're probably not going to ask you how many pins are on a card, because that's just rote memorization. They're going to ask you, how do you use this? You have this, you've been given this piece of memory. Here's what it looks like. What is this? How do you use it? Where would this plug in? How would I be able to use this technology? One of those things. So don't get wrapped around the details of the exam so much. Really focus on what the exam is asking you about. What does this technology do? And I think that's the good way to do it and work through it. And a lot of these things you need to know. You need to know how many pins are on it so you can recognize it if you see it. But it's not something where you need to know that because you can't be a technician unless you know the number of pins on memory. No, but if somebody's left a memory module and you pick it up and you say, what is this? Is that DDR2? Is that DDR3? What is this? You need to start making some understandings of what are these things that you work through. And let's go back to the calls. The 240 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
I'm hey there. My name's Phil.
Hey, Phil. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Yes, I had a general question. It was actually great that you were just talking about the memorization effect on the CompTIA Plus. I have my first 901 exam scheduled for Friday, and I've gone through the entire the entire 901 video series of yours, and it just seems like so much information. Yeah. And even with a little bit of experience in my belt, it's like I cannot seem to get it concrete. If I had Google available, yeah, I can get in 10 minutes, but outside of like regular flashcards, do you have any other tips of memorization on these such varied topics?
It's a tough one. You're right. The A+ exam, both of them have just a massive amount of information on them. You can easily see why they split them up into two different exams because it's so much information, but it doesn't go very deep. It's really more of the top layer across a lot of different topics. And I think that's part of the challenge in trying to memorize some of this information that's there. Other than doing flashcards, flashcards are a great way to do this. It helps cement some of these things into your brain. Actually working on the technology is one I find helps me. A lot of people say, how do you remember port numbers? Especially if you've never worked with port numbers before, with TCP or UDP port numbers, that's more of a security/networking thing. Well, then you should work with security or networking devices. Maybe configure a firewall. Maybe go in and change some of your Windows firewall settings to allow or disallow a particular port number, and then also associate with that the type of application in use. When you do more hands-on, it fires different synapses. It stores the information differently in your brain than if you're just reading it in a book or watching it in a video. That doesn't mean that should be the only way to do it. It shouldn't be just hands-on. You should use as many different ways as possible. But for me, I find a lot of hands-on works really well for me because I can go through a process and go, oh, okay, I get IPsec now because I just built an IPsec tunnel. I set it up a certain way. I sent some data over the tunnel. I set it up with these particular port numbers. Now I really understand it and it's in my brain. And now I can apply that if I see it on the exam.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Looks like I got some work to do over these 40 hours. Thank you.
You've got a couple days left. Now you can at least, if there's certain topics for you, what you should focus on is get the copy of the exam objectives and use it as a checklist. Start at the top, go, yep, I understand that one. And the way I usually check it off my checklist is, can I explain this technology to someone else? If I can, I check it off. If I can't, I go back and read more about it. So you should do the same thing. Just focus on those exam objectives, go through the list, check off everything you know. If you have a big list of things you don't know, maybe there's a perfect place to cram more information in prior to Friday so that at least you'll know that information when you walk in the door.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Good luck, Phil.
Thanks.
There's that's one of those things when you're getting down to the end. Some people will send me messages and say, I'm taking my exam in an hour. What do I need to know? Well, it's too late. You got an hour left. I can't tell you what you need to know in an hour. But when you got a day left, now you got some options. Now you can start doing this. You got 3 days left. It's a different strategy. If you have a week left, now maybe you can get more hands-on in that. It just depends on what you're trying to do. Let's go to the 404 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hey, my name is Kevin.
Hey,
I'm
Kevin.
a college student. Yes.
What can we do for you?
I'm a college student at a four-year community college. I'm studying information systems security.
Nice.
And when I went to a webinar when I was a freshman, and they revealed to me that I have to take some certifications when I graduate. So I started planning since then to get my A+, my Network Plus, my Security Plus, and some other ones like the CEH and CISSP. Do you think that's a good route I should take to become a...
It's a good question. It's a common question I get too, especially for people that are coming out of a college or university. They're now trying to get into the job market and figure out what things work best for what you're trying to do. Security is also one of these very interesting parts of IT that's a little bit different than server administration, desktop administration, help desk, or data center, because security tends to be a little bit higher level than some of those other pieces. And I say this speaking as a former senior systems engineer for a firewall company and having to know all of these technical things about security and visiting a lot of companies in the Southeast and really the Eastern United States and talking to their security people about what they're doing. I think I've got a pretty good idea of the type of challenges that they have in trying to solve as IT security professionals. And one of the things I tell people is, if you want to get into security, learn as much networking as you can, which kind of seems counterproductive offhand. Everybody wants to jump into the CEH or the CISSP And there's certainly value with things like that. A lot of people think that IT security is penetration testing. I'm going to do pen testing. But in reality, penetration testing is the tiniest little sliver of IT security that you would run into. I went through my entire IT security career and did no penetration testing. There was really very, very little aspect of penetration testing associated with that. Some people, there are jobs out there where all they do is penetration testing. I'm not saying that we don't have jobs that do that. We just don't have a lot of jobs that do that. One of the things that a security manager is going to look to hire people is that they have a very good understanding of networking. People don't realize with IT security that a huge part of the job deals with understanding how the network operates, because you're integrating a firewall, and you're probably integrating that firewall at layer 3. You might be integrating it at layer 2. You might be integrating the firewall at level 1. There might be redundancy with the firewall, which means you're going to need to have redundancy with routers or switches. Redundancy with routers uses different technologies than redundancies with switches. You're probably setting up some IPsec tunnels. You're going to have to know a lot about protocols, a lot about how to get IP subnetting and natting from one place to the other. And on top of all of those, of course, you have to layer the security piece. You have to layer the IPS. You have to be able to layer the URL filter, the malware detection, the cloud-based antivirus, your email integration. All of those things touch and integrate to the network. So you have to have an extremely solid foundation in networking to ever hope to apply some of these IT security concepts to it. So don't worry so much about some of these long-term security credentials like CEH, or certainly with CISSP, you already have to have 5 years of full-time security under your belt to even qualify to take that certification. Get as much networking as you can. And if you understand the network, it is remarkable how easy the IT security layers right on top of that. And that way you kind of start with some security, but you already now understand OSPF and how to set up the VLANs and how you've got all of the natting that's working in your environment. You've got configurations for your switches. You know how to do all the routing. You've got static routes configured. You've got dynamic routing that you're doing. You've got access control lists that you've been working through. How do you integrate those access control lists on the router with the firewall rules that you're creating in the firewall? You can see where the blending goes together with IT security and networking. So that's my recommendation, especially if you're in college, you're working to get that degree and then get into security. Get that foundation of networking. And by the way, there's probably more networking jobs out there than security. It's a great place to get into an organization, understand the network, and it's very common to move from the networking group directly into the IT security group. So it's another stepping point to go from point A to point B to point C. And you're also at that point well qualified to step into those security shoes. So maybe Kevin, that will help you get some perspective on where you could go. Everybody's path is different, but that's just one idea and one of the ways I think you can at least maximize how to get to that IT security role.
Okay. So do you think I should, because I know the Network Plus is going to end next year, and during the time I'm going to be in school, and I usually take these certifications. I just took the 901 last month, so I'm planning every summer break to take at least one of these certification exams and pass them. So I know next summer that the Network Plus is going to end. Do you think I should study for that now, or do you think I should just wait for the new version?
My mantra, if you will, is never, never, never wait to get certified. There's no reason to ever wait to get certified. You mentioned that the exam version is changing on the Network Plus exam, and I certainly will. Let's look at the dates. I'm going to pull up my dates for the Network Plus. I've got some of this information here. So the latest Network Plus exam is the N10006. That's your latest version of Network Plus. The Network Plus exam, this latest version, was released on the end of February of 2015. So you can think that if CompTIA sticks to their 3-year cycle, that you would think that somewhere around the end of February, beginning of March of 2018, that they might update or release a new version of the exam. So it might be the N10007 if they keep keep the numbers the way they've been doing. But they will probably keep the 006 around, what they've been doing, for 9 months after that, 6 to 9 months after that. You will still probably be able to take the N10006. So probably to the end of 2018, I would expect that you'd still be able to take the N10006. So the real question is, well, did I take the N10006 or do I take the N10007 if that's the new version that comes out? That's just the version of the exam. That has nothing to do with the certification. The certification is the Network Plus. So it doesn't matter which version of questions you take, you still get exactly the same certification at the end of that. So if you take the N10006, you are in the Network Plus. If you take the N10007, when it's released someday, you also get the Network Plus. The exact same piece of paper, the exact same certification. The certification didn't change. The only thing that changes is the questions they ask you to have you earn the certification. And indeed, if they come out with the N10007, on the first day that exam is available, there's probably not going to be a lot of books and study materials. And I found that most people stick with the current exam all the way to the end because there's so much information. There's books out there on the older exam version. There's study groups like this one that people can listen to. There's so much more information for the older exam type. And if you get the same piece of paper at the end, why wouldn't you take the exam that's going to be the best one for you, the best strategy for you to be able to pass it? So never, never, never wait to get certified. Now, if you check CompTIA's website and they tell you that the N10006 will be retired next week or even next month, well, you might think, oh, okay, maybe if they're going to retire the exam at that point, I should start studying the new materials. So always go and check CompTIA's site. But if they've not mentioned anything about a new exam version, you can already in your mind think, well, I got at least 6 months. Because if tomorrow they say that they've got a new exam version, they're still going to give me 6 months of a ramp. So never wait to get certified. Use the latest things that you have available. And I would expect with Network Plus, if they keep the same thing, because I created a course for the N10004, the 005, and now the 006, networking doesn't have huge dramatic changes in it from one version to the other because it doesn't change as much as operating systems change. In fact, it doesn't change as much as security for that matter. We still have 10 and 100 megabit Ethernet sitting around in these organizations that I visit. So don't worry so much about things changing. Focus on what's available for you today. Get the certifications that are out there. Don't ever wait to get certified. You want to have that certification on your resume when you walk in to that interview so you can tell people, oh yeah, I'm certified on this. I'm ready to learn more about networking and I've already got a good foundation. Let's do this. And that's a great strategy in my mind to go about working towards that goal, Kevin.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for calling. It's a common question. Never wait to get certified. Having the certification can only help you. Nobody looks at a resume and says, oh, you're certified? Oh, I've got to put you lower in the list. That's just not good for me. I don't like that you're this knowledgeable. Let me put it down. That rarely happens. You're not going to find a lot of people who are going to have that happen to you. So you want to have a way to compete against everybody else who is interviewing for that position. And one of those ways is to get some additional credentials, and that's a good way to do it. Quick, I'm sorry, the caller's been holding a long time. Before I go to you, let me quickly go to the chat room. The 901-902 doesn't change for quite some time. I mentioned this at the beginning of the study group today that the latest version, the 901-902, was released. I want to give you the exact date. On December the 15th, 2015. So you might think that a new version of that would be released in December of 2018. So again, so much time before any of these things go away. Never, never wait to get certified for those. Is there a particular order? There's not. Just depends on what you want to do. Everybody has their own order. I took the Security Plus first, then the Network Plus, then the A Plus. Because in my world, the things that I was doing, that was the right path for me. Other people go the other direction. Some people never take A Plus and Network Plus. They only take Security Plus. It depends on what you're trying to do. Let's go to the phone calls. This caller's been holding an awful long time. Thank you for holding the 215 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Yeah, hi. It's Chris.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Well, first of all, I got to thank you. I got the course notes for the last study group. I've been going over those, and I just got the pop quiz collection. I've been going over that.
Nice.
That really helps cement my knowledge. I'm pretty confident. I got the first test, the 901 test, coming up next Friday. I'm just going over some things now that, and you had one of the last callers about memorizing sockets, ports, those type of things. I have a two-part question for you real quick.
Okay, sure.
I'm actually have a job. I work in the TV news field right now.
Okay.
And what would be your best advice? I want to get into I obviously want to get into the IT business, and I actually have a Cisco certification, which was kind of silly for me to get at first, but taking this 901 and the 902, obviously, to get the A+ certification for, like, say, a help desk job or obviously an entry-level job, what would be your best advice to somebody starting out? I had troubleshooting. I guess the catchphrase transferrable skills people use.
Yep.
What would be your best advice with that?
You're actually sort of got a little bit of advantage with some level of Cisco certification under your belt. It's not one that you go through first. Like you said, probably not the first thing you should do would be a Cisco certification. But if you were to get the 901 and 902 under your belt and earn the A+ certification, and you could combine those things together, I would think that would be pretty appealing for an employer, because they can see, all right, you've got some skills here that we could help apply. And for many people, the help desk is the place that you start. That's the place I started whenever I got my first second job was a corporate help desk. My first job was more of a remote break fix, where I'd come to your site and fix a problem, upgrade a hard drive, upgrade the memory, and then I would take off. I was that person that just traveled around. But my second job, the next 5 years, I was working at a corporation, and the first year and a half of that was at the help desk. And it was, a lot of people think the help desk is you're sitting there on the phone with the thing in your ear, and you sit in a chair the whole time. And there are certainly help desks like that, but a lot of help desks that you will find will be at a state and local government, a school system, a corporation is one where you have a desk, you get a ticket that pops up on your screen, and you may be going to somebody's desk to help them, or going to another building or facility, or doing a remote desktop over the phone. It's not quite the call center environment that a lot of people think about when they think about help desk. And that's where you learn everything. That's where you're in the middle of everything. So I tell people, don't be afraid of the help desk positions. Get in there, because that's where you're learning a lot about a lot of different technologies, because you're helping people connect to third-party sites. You're helping people with the applications that are very specific to your company. You're helping people with connectivity over the network. There's security issues, concerns you have to know. And you get to know the people in these other departments. You get to meet the networking team. You get to meet the security team. You find out when the workstation team is deploying or setting up a new part of the building. They've built a new building and they have to install a bunch of machines. Here's your opportunity to go help out with them and learn what they do and get them to know you better, because eventually the networking team, the security team, the workstation team, the server team are going to have an opening. And that opening is the one that they would love to be able to promote from within. And the help desk is a perfect place to go, because they know you, they like working with you, you're familiar with the products they work with, you're familiar with the technologies they're using. They'll scoop you up, and now you're working in those teams, and you have a completely different path you can now follow. So that's my goal, is usually to tell people, find those ways to get in the door. That job that you choose when you get in the door is not even close to going to be your last IT job. That's not the way information technology works. IT is all about following the path, because when I started, there was no internet, there was no Twitter, there was no live video stream from my studio. There was nothing I could even dream of something like that happening. You just kind of have to follow it. And it will drag you along. It will tell you, obviously, this is what you should be doing, and you end up going that direction. But you got to start somewhere, and I think a help desk is a great place to start.
That's great. Thanks for the advice. Yeah, I like I said, it was kind of silly for me to I have a CCNA, and to stay current, I actually got a CCNA security.
Wow.
So which is good. I have those in my belt. I have that experience. And I've been fortunate to have interviews, but I'm running myself against a brick wall because I've gone interviews and it's like, hey, we know you know your stuff, but I don't have any experience.
Right.
So I really appreciate that advice. Hey, I got to start at the ground floor and work my way up. I'm certainly happy to do that.
And you kind of have to find that right mix. There's some employers that would rather you know nothing so that they can pay you less, but then have you learn as you go. There's some employers that don't have time to train you, and they need to start somebody who at least has familiarity with the technology. Just keep checking around. Just keep finding out. And this may be a good opportunity. I tell people the best job and the easiest way to get a job is to work with someone who already knows you. So if you're not attending a local Microsoft user group, a local Cisco user group, a local security user group, there's ISSA and other organizations, you should absolutely attend those meetings and meet the people who are there. There's always a meet and greet time where there's pizza. You can sit around. Oh, where do you work? What do you do? When you hire people for your help desk, what are you looking for? There's the opportunity to know those people in your area. The IT world is a small world of people. I'm talking as someone who's been to trade shows and been to know the people working in my area and know the people working in other areas. You see the people, same people all the time. They're on my LinkedIn. I know when they move from company to company. It's its own little club of folks, and you know where everybody's going all the time. So you need to get into that club. You need to meet those people so that when you walk in the door and you say, yeah, I'm interviewing here, and you're talking to a hiring manager and go, oh yeah, I know from the Microsoft user group meeting, Bob, who works in your server team, and he was telling me about this. Well, now you've got a connection that you can use. My first job in IT, I somehow got without knowing anybody who was there. And then I went to maybe 10 jobs after that. I've worked with many different companies throughout the years. Every job I went to after that, I went because somebody was already working there that I knew. In every single one of those cases. Don't discount the networking of people, because that can be one of your best strategies when you're trying to move around or get that job in IT.
Great. Yeah, I need to do that. I'm in the Philadelphia area, and I know there's plenty of networking opportunities out there, so I have to do that. Would it make sense? I mean, in terms of not necessarily not using the right word argue, but that I have these troubleshooting skills in my present job that are transferable. I mean, obviously, once I have the A+ on my resume.
Everything you've done has a value. In fact, a lot of the times when I used to be a hiring manager, and I'd sit down with people and I'd say, tell me about your home lab. Because ultimately you find out what people are interested in by what they're building when they're at home. So they've got a server, maybe they're doing some virtual machines, maybe they've got a honeypot set up, maybe they've got a network configure that's unique, maybe they've configured their house with a certain network configuration. Tell me about the wireless settings that you have. Do you use a VPN to get into those? Have you set up multiple VLANs in your house? How are you integrating in some of these Internet of Things? Do you have one of those video doorbells? Do you have a garage door that you can control from your iPhone? Those are things I want to know about, because that gives me some insight into how people integrate technology that goes beyond some of the things that you would normally do with, do you know Microsoft Word? Do you know Microsoft Excel? I want to know more about what their potential is. So some of the things that have nothing to do with day-to-day experience can be a great thing to talk about when you're sitting in front of somebody for a job like that.
Okay. Thanks again for your advice. I really appreciate it.
Good luck, Chris.
Thanks.
That's I mention on my study groups all the time about those user group meetings. They are valuable, and I'm speaking as somebody who's presented at a lot of user group meetings and talked about the technologies and showed, lifted up the hood, and we looked at the engine of these things and talked about the bits and bytes and how these things operate. It's a great place to meet people, and you shouldn't discount that at all. Let's go to the 502 area code. Let's see if this will pick up the phone line. Maybe. Let's see, there we go. There's 502. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
My name is Raj.
Hey, Raj.
How are you, sir?
What can we do for you?
Well, before I start, I can say that I'm talking to you on the cell phone and watching your podcast on YouTube, and there's a substantial amount of signal lag.
Oh yeah, there's a huge delay there. I send the feed to YouTube, and then for YouTube to be able to cut it up into all the little pieces to give you the low bandwidth and the medium bandwidth, they take about 15 or 20 seconds before it ever shows up on the other side. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, it keeps buffering too, but anyway. The question I wanted to ask is, okay, my background is totally a far cry. I started out in the medical field.
Okay.
And wasn't very successful in establishing myself as a medical professional. So I decided to switch over to IT. And I've been studying for the A+ certification since about the beginning of this year.
Okay.
And I'm kind of concerned as to the performance-based portion of it. I mean, I don't see very many simulators out there where I can practice on that. I mean, that's an integral part of the exam, very important too. Do you have any suggestions as to how I can prepare for that?
I do. A lot of people think the performance-based questions are quote-unquote simulations. And they certainly could present you with a virtual environment or command line and ask you to perform functions. But the performance-based questions are not exclusively simulations. For the last 4 or 5 or 6 study groups, I always give a performance-based question as my first question of the study group. So you may want to go back and look at the last few study groups to get an example of what some of those things might be. Some of those are command line, where here's a command line and I want you to perform a function. But others are, like today, here's some technologies, put them in a particular order. I need you to sort them into a particular order. They might give you a set of pictures, and you have to match the picture to what that picture will do for you, what that technology does for you. So some performance-based questions I find to be kind of easy because they're just drawing a line from one thing to another, and if you know what the pictures are and you know what the technologies are, they're easy to match up. So don't be thrown or worry too much about, now I have this virtual environment that I have to use my mouse and my keyboard to be able to accomplish this thing, because you may not get any questions that require you to do that. You might get one question that requires you to do that. You might get 2, but not all of them are going to be a simulation, quote unquote, to be able to do that. So that's,
yeah, I mean,
so don't worry too much.
I heard like there's a simulation, right? There's a simulation where you have to assemble components on a motherboard.
There certainly could be. In fact, one of the things in my book, in my pop quiz collection book, is I put, I forget how many, 10 to 12 performance-based questions in each book. So I have 10 to 12 for the 901, I have 10 to 12 for the 902. So one of those, in fact, I did exactly the same thing. I think I've done this on a study group before. As I said, go to Google Images. If you type in Google, you type motherboard in Google. Let's see if I can do this on my machine without causing an enormous problem for me. But if you type motherboard into Google and you choose the images link, it will bring up pictures of all these motherboards. And you can even adjust the settings. You can click the more, where's the settings button? Is it tools, where I can get the higher resolution? There we go. So if I hit tools, I can change the size to be large so that I get a nice high resolution image. And then I can start clicking on those pictures and starting to see all the different components on there. So if you're not familiar at all with a motherboard, there's a great way to do it. In one of my books, I took a picture of a motherboard and I just drew lines to the different items on the motherboard, and I said, fill in the blanks of what these things are. Well, you can do the same thing yourself. Go to the motherboards on Google, pull up a motherboard and find one that's not marked, and just start pointing at different things on the screen. What does that box do? What does this thing do? What does that interface? What does that slot do? And see if you can start seeing commonalities between them, because that might be something that certainly comes up on the exam, because it's certainly in the exam objectives.
Okay. And I've got this prep book from Mike Myers, CompTIA. And I also wanted to know, well, the first part of that question is this a good book? And also, are the practice exams on the CompTIA website adequate practice for the 901 and 902?
The book, I'm not sure if the book would qualify as something that would work for you or not. I think the books, every book has a different voice, and some books work better for some people and some books work better for others. Obviously, you want the book to be of the highest quality. A lot of people like the books from Mike Myers. I generally tell people, go out to Amazon, read through what people say in their reviews of the book. Usually you can also read through parts of the book. You can look inside and read it and see if it's a style that you like. Some people like his style. Some people don't like his style. So make sure you find the book that works best for how you like to read and study. And there's a big difference. I got to tell you, huge difference between the different A+ books that are out there. And on practically every A+ book you're going to find has been approved by CompTIA. There is no one official book for the CompTIA exams. What CompTIA does is take a book that someone's written and they make sure that it meets a particular quality level. And if it has all of the different options in there, then they'll put their stamp of approval on it. For being able to find the right one, that's a good way to go about doing it. As far as the questions on the CompTIA website, are they good enough to help study? There's never enough questions you can go through to help you study. That's why I wrote 2 books that have 1,300 questions in them, because I felt there weren't enough questions out there for people to go through that were of a high enough quality, that stuck to the exam objectives, and that weren't written in a way that were confusing. I found a lot of the questions that were out there just weren't very well written questions. So that was one where whenever I start going through it, that's a good way to do it. And for performance-based questions, ultimately, don't rely on just videos. Don't rely just on books. Get as much hands-on as you can. If you've got a computer, pull it apart and have a look at it. If you've got an operating system you can work on, run through these commands. If you have something like a GTS Labs or some virtual machines you can work through, that's another opportunity to go through and work through those. Go to modern.ie. That's Microsoft's website, where they have virtual machines for Windows 7 and Windows 10, Windows 7 and Windows 8. They do have Windows 10 there, but obviously you won't need that for the exam. You can download a pre-built virtual machine, load it up in VirtualBox for free, and proceed to destroy it without causing any problems with your local machine. So there's an opportunity to really put Windows through its paces without needing a Windows license, without having to pay for anything. It's out there for you to download right now.
Okay. And where can we get the book of your questions?
Everything is on my site, professormesser.com. And I've got from the A+ menu menu you can click on. It will show you all the pop quiz collection, the course notes. If you're interested in the questions, you go to professormesser.com/PQC, pop quiz collection. That will take you right to the page, show you all about it.
Okay. And is that all premium, or is it is that for a fee?
Yeah, the books, they're $10 a piece, $10 for the 901, $10 for the 902. It's a downloadable PDF, and you can download it right after you pay for it.
Wow. And those should be more than adequate for me to prepare for both parts.
I think it fits that category of getting some good Q&A. You've watched some videos, you've read a book, you've got some hands-on. This fills that Q&A side of it, though, that I think is pretty important.
Okay. And thank you very much, sir.
Good luck, Raj.
And I appreciate it, and I now have your number.
Yep.
I'll call you as I have questions.
Please do, sir. And always, if anybody has questions throughout the week, there's that contact us link at the top of the bottom of our website, comes directly to me. So if we're not in a live event and you still have a question, you can always click on that and send me notes as well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Best of luck.
Have a good week.
You too. That's always a challenge, though, is knowing where you can find these things. There's so many different resources available. It is a bit of a challenge to find out where should I be getting the right content from. You almost have to do as much research on that as you do research on learning the material inside of them and being able to work through them. Back to the phone lines, the 385 area code. Well, that doesn't sound very good, caller. That didn't work out so well. But call back. We can always try that again. and work through those pieces. The phone number again, 855-785-RJ45 to be able to do that. When's the last time you heard a busy signal? When's the last? I almost didn't recognize it. What was that? Busy? Did somebody's trunk was full? Yeah, he just disconnected and got the busy. I just happened to get in there. The system I use for the picking up the phone lines is all cloud-based. So I've called into the phone line system, and then I can pick up the phone line and drop the phone lines, sort of like a radio show type system to be able to do that. So of course there's a whole bunch of trunks going in on the backside. It brings it over to my screen, and who knows what goes on. And of course you've also got Skype loaded on top of that. So you never know exactly what's going to happen. Yeah, you don't happen to hear that much anymore, and being able to work through them. Wow, your bookstore has 801 certification books. Yeah, that's a good point in the chat room. People are saying there's these old certification books in the bookstores. I see that as well, because when the very few times these days when I am in a bookstore, I of course go back to see what certification books they have there. And I see that as well. I see old Network Plus books and old Cisco books, and all these certifications aren't given anymore, but the books are still there. So make sure that the study materials that you use, that the books that you're looking at on Amazon, that the books that you have match the exam number. Pretty important, because the exams change quite a bit. With A+, they changed 30 to 40% between the last version, which is just enough for you to fail. Quite honestly, you want to be sure you have the right books. The new Security Plus that I'm currently working on, that will be released at the end, near the end of this year, that is dramatically different. Half the exam is different. So there's no way you're going to be able to use those old books with the new exam. You're never going to pass if you use those. Yeah, and people are saying you can still find 700 series A+ materials on Amazon. Don't buy those. I'm sure they have them. They're sitting in a warehouse. Somebody's paying to keep those in a warehouse so that somebody will buy them. But there's absolutely no way to do it, to be able to have that there. That just doesn't make sense to have those pieces there. Let me refresh my screen, and we'll see what comes up in the chat room. Rob is asking, did I set up my video surveillance system, or did I have my alarm company install it? It's not really yeah, is this a social engineering question? Do you want to know more about my security systems? Well, I'll give you an overview. I did have the cameras themselves. In my house, I have quite a few security cameras, and we've all seen the security camera that I have outside at birdfeeder.live. If you haven't seen birdfeeder.live, that's my backyard. So let's have a look at right now, in fact, at birdfeeder.live. There's a live view of what's going on right now. Put some food in there, but that's using one of the security cameras that I have out there. It's an HD camera. It looks good, actually. And it's a live stream 24/7 of what's there. Obviously, the same idea applies, live stream 24/7, when you're dealing with security. You know, you always have to have that there. So I have cameras. I have a security DVR. So all the cameras are IP-based cameras that are powered over Ethernet, and all coming back to a single DVR that I have in my home. And that's I had the alarm company do the actual installation of the cameras. I don't have them manage my cameras. In fact, they put them in, and I said, well, great, I'm going to take all the cameras, because obviously there's an IP addressing scheme associated with all of the cameras. They all have their own IP addresses that are managed from DHCP that's configured on the DVR. And I said, well, I'm going to put a particular IP addressing scheme in here that's going to be on a different VLAN than the rest of my house, which is also in a different VLAN than my studio, which is also in a different VLAN than my voice communication setup, because all my voice that I have here with the microphone and with the mixer that I have here is also IP-based. And it turns out I also have another VLAN for the birdfeeder.live that you just saw. So there's tons of VLANs, and they looked at me. These are guys that install video cameras, looked at me, just blink. What? I don't know what that is. They knew enough to get them plugged in, which is what I needed. I need you to stick these up on the roof. I need you to run the wire, put the Ethernet right here. I got it from there. So for my implementation, I got it. So that was very easy for them to set up and get it running. I just needed somebody up on a ladder so that if something happened, it wouldn't be me that had a broken back and out of work. So that was the important part. They took the dangerous job of getting those stuck up on the house. Once they did and ran them all back, it's simple. Because now I could do anything. I own the DVRs. I own the cameras. I do have an alarm in my house, and generally the alarm company owns the alarm, but I own everything else. And that was the deal, is that I bought and implemented all of that. Different alarm companies do it different ways. Some alarm companies don't charge you for the cameras or the DVR, and they maintain it and they keep it up to date. But I'm not that kind of person. I want control of that content. And of course, I got to choose. Do I want to store this in the cloud? Do I want to store it in a local DVR? I wanted the option to be able also to rip that DVR out and put a different manufacturer in. I currently have one manufacturer's DVR. I might want to take it out and put it a Synology DVR. Synology has a great one. Or I might want to, there's a lot of software-based DVRs that you can build your own server, load software, and it talks to those cameras. So there's lots of ways to do it. I'm not afraid of heights. I'm afraid of the part where you're falling. That's the part that I'm afraid of. My Mrs. Professor Messer is a registered nurse, so she knows what can happen. She doesn't like it when I'm on a ladder, and my goal is to make sure she's happy. So I make sure that I don't put myself in a position that makes her nervous. Plus, it's pretty important that this is all I do. This is what you're seeing right now is me at work. So it's important that I'm still able to do that. And if my back is broken, I'm not able to do that. My children don't eat and I lose the house and we have to give the dogs away. Nobody wants that. So it's important that we're good. It's that's the challenging part, is to keep everybody happy. So one of these days I should really map out and create a network design of what I've got in the house, because there's quite a bit of wireless connections. There is quite a bit of wired connectivity. There's at least 3 access points / routers here. There's a lot going on, and they're all different VLANs, different configurations, different power over Ethernet configurations. It's a mixture of different things, and I really do need to document it. People have been asking about that. People just said, "What the heck's on your desk?" You know, they've said, point and tell me what's there. So we really do need to do a video that's just stored with, here's what's on my desk and what's in my data center, which is a closet, a 19-inch rack that's in my closet in the other room. So that's usually where we go and what we do with those things. So, but that's probably a project for another time, because we've come to the end of our second hour and all the things that we are doing here in this study group and the live questions, and I couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much for joining me for the first hour with our Q&A. Thank you for calling in our second hour and asking the questions in the chat room. Thank you for being there as well. Really would not be able to do this without you, and I look forward to the Network Plus study group that happens next week at this time. Wednesday at noon Eastern time is when that's going to happen. And of course, we've got our study group next month. You can always find out when the next one is at professormesser.com/calendar. Well, this brings us to the end. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time on the A+ study group.